Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MAGA Kingdom Report. This is a special interview with John Ventry. John Ventry has a long career with UPS, United Parcel Service, and you know, those guys, you need the package, they're going to deliver it to you. John, also on the political front, has run for the governor of Pennsylvania on the last go round. He has also run for county commissioner. And John is definitely a patriot. He is one of us. So, John, welcome to the MAGA Kingdom Report.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Frank. I enjoyed these interviews with you and Anastasia.
Yeah, you know what, John? It's all designed to what? Let the people know we need to take control, because if we don't, we never get justice through the court. So having a good governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania would be a real plus, John. We'd be able to sit back and have someone in control that probably won't appoint Richard Levine to the health department. So, John, I guess there's so much going on now, but let's talk about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and what you envision in a governor's run and some of the things that you might do.
Yeah. Let me make one comment, though. When you said not appointing Richard, whatever, Levine. When I ran last time and we were doing one of the debates, the moderator said, well, you know, it was 14 of us. He said, who would you have on your staff? And the first thing, I was the first person they asked. And the first thing I said, I would appoint Nietzsche Zama, Dr. Zama, as my health secretary. And that's exactly who, and they just applauded. Even the other candidates applauded because it was so apropos. And it's always stayed with me that is exactly who's going to be my health secretary if he wants it, you know?
That's a good idea. And you know, it goes to show, look, in these times right now, people are awake. And that would be a great, listen, that would not be a DEI hire. That would be a person that knows what's going on. So hats off to you. I'm voting just for that.
Yeah, well, you know, that's my creativity, you know, and I'm very much like Trump. Matter of fact, on my website, I posted how Ventry and Trump are similar. There's like 10 points. We grew up in New York City. You know, we published books. We had reality show where we were executives. Obviously, he was the owner of his company, but, you know, I have executive experience, creativity. We don't back down. We're patriots. We're pro-God. So at the end, I'll give you my website, but, you know, there's such a similarity. And even the way the Patriots and the progressives went after him on a smaller scale. They did the same thing to me. You know, they don't want to see me win locally because they know I'm not for sale. You know, so getting back to your question, you know, it's been 4 years, 3.5 years since I ran for governor. So what's going on in PA? I think the answer to that is going to. I have a number of things to say, but I think the tell sign is what happens with the budget. You know, you look at it, we're at 48.5 billion. Billion. And Shapiro wants almost 4 billion more. I mean, we are definitely going to go to 50 from 48.5. We're going to go to 50, 50.5, maybe 51. The spending is just, you know, it's just like what Musk is looking at, but we'll get into that later.
John, how could they? We're in a deficit, right? The tax revenue can't meet the spending, right? You just came off a pandemic, a recession, and these guys, there's no break. They just want to tax and spend like.
Yeah. Well, you know, and here's the thing, you know, and I don't think I'm wrong about this. When we went through COVID, we were given the COVID relief funds. I don't know how much it was. Maybe we give it, let's say $2 billion. I don't know what it was. Could be 3. I don't know. What Pennsylvania did was they added that money to our budget. You see, and all of a sudden our budget took a 5-6% increase and they left it there. So this was very underhanded. It was smart, I guess, on their part.
It's what they do.
It's political. It's what they do. See, they didn't have it as a separate fund that we're pulling money out. No, let's just say it's 2 billion. We were at 38 billion. So let's add the 2 to our budget. Now we're at 40. You know, and our budget has gone We were at 38 billion or 37 and a half at COVID 5 years ago. We have increased our budget spending 40% in 5 years.
Uh,
40%.
yeah, let
And
me
so,
ask this. This is what they do. This is nothing new, right? I'm on the school board. Ed Rendell is the governor of Pennsylvania. The budget then was 20 billion. And
yeah,
Ed Rendell gave us a $1 billion stipend. And he said, look, don't hire any teachers. Now remember, I'm on the school board of Old Fort, Pennsylvania. Don't hire any teachers because this is a one-time event. We're giving you the
yeah,
money once. And guess what they did, John? Same thing. They put it right into the budget, and then the next year they said, "Oh, well, we have to raise taxes because we're a billion short." I said, "Wait a minute! You were
that's what
told by the governor of Pennsylvania on the media that said don't do that, John." It's
that's what
time
they
for the
do.
people to say, "Here's a guy like John Ventry. Listen to what he's saying.
Yeah.
It deserves a vote."
Well, you know what? One of the things I saw nationally yesterday was that school spending's up tremendously, but teacher hires are only up 5%. Principal hires were up like 13%, but the next level, wait, is up 40% in what do they call it? Administrators? Who did it?
Administration, the
Yeah,
bureaucracy, the deep state.
40%. So we barely added teachers, but we added all these administrators to tell the teachers what to do,
Uh,
and there's no results.
we
No
need
results.
we need a guy like you. Now, a lot of us know that, but right, we're not in a position to say like you are now. So when you go to
Yeah.
a debate and you're up there with the other candidates, like John, imagine this. Imagine if we educated students so when they graduated, they couldn't vote for deficit spending because they know, hey, this is deficit spending. Like it's going
Yeah.
to cost us. Like our education system in Pennsylvania, like is when we graduate somebody, they should be able to go into accounting, food service, hospitality, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not happening. And we're spending, I know Delaware Valley, which is up here, they're spending $300,000 for a K through 12 education. What? And we graduate people that what? Don't understand economics and can't get into the workforce. So John, you have a heavy lift, but if there's
Well, here's the
nothing to
thing.
do it,
When I did these debates and stuff, I know a lot of facts. I've always been that way. So just to give you quickly, I don't know how many people know this. We currently spend 16.8 billion on education. That's 35% of our budget.
that's
One more than a third goes to education. And Shapiro just added 2 billion. He wants to add another 800 million. Do you know what we spend per student in the state on education to go to a
what is it?
public school?
What is it?
26,000 per student to go to elementary school, to go to high school. I asked locally here, I was on a political group. I said, what does it cost to go to Greensburg Central Catholic over here? 14,000. So let me get this right. 14,000 to a private school, 26,000 to go to public school because public school is the teachers union that supports the Democrats.
And the bureaucracy and that middle that doesn't look, it's not an interface to the student. They don't teach, they don't impart knowledge, right? It's just what part of what Shapiro does, which adds layers of bureaucracy, which in turn is patronage, and they vote for the guy. John,
That's what it is. But we're number 5 in the country on spending per student. Number 5. Our results are in the middle of the pack, 23, whatever. We don't have results, but we're number 5. So you look at what do companies do? I worked at UPS. They outsource, right? Well, we got to
right.
cut costs. They outsource, right? So Shapiro was all for school choice, and the Republicans are. He flipped, right? He was for it. Now he's not. Well,
Yeah.
why? Because the teachers union complained we won't get as much money if you outsource it like a normal company does. But he's kind of I looked also at like I got my home heating bill,
Gas bill?
$400 for gas last month because of the cold.
Yeah, right.
It was 300 the month before that. But what did we do? We shut down 2 coal firing plants, right? They're cheap, and you go to, and I mean, the gas is good, I mean, it's better than the, wind, solar, all these other, but coal was cheap. So now, and so what did Shapiro do? He says, well, we're not going to get into the RGGI, right? He flipped on that too. He flipped on it.
That's good. He flipped. It's
Yeah.
not going
Well,
into
no, he is for it. He is for it now.
for it.
Yeah,
So I never knew he was against it.
yeah. Well, initially he was against it, and then I mean, as soon as he got in, he flipped.
Just
He
like free choice, elect me, and then boom,
Yeah.
real
Well,
job.
he filed a lawsuit to get back into RGGI. It's still, pending and all of that. He wants us back in it. It doesn't work. Do you know that these windmills that you see, the windmills, they have diesel fuel that turns the turbines. And the cost of building those, there is zero savings on wind. Wind is the biggest. You know what they do with the blades once they break down and everything?
Bury them.
No, I found out yesterday. They take them and they somehow grind them down and add them to the asphalt for the roads. But you know what? We should do that with all the windmills because we use the cheapest asphalt for our roads, which is why we're always filling potholes and repairing it. Maybe this stuff will add to the grade. I don't know. But that's but then again, you look at our party, right? So what did we do? I'm a Republican. I am, a Pennsylvania first Republican, an America first
Good point.
Republican.
Pennsylvania first.
Yeah, and so the PAGOP just elected a new chair, right? So that's Rothman,
Yeah.
right? Rothman, and the other guy, what was his name? BAC
Backenberg.
Backenberg. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Backenberg's a patriot, right? So they elect Rothman, and Rothman. He made like 13 trips down to Cuba.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, this guy. You look at this guy's background. I mean, it's incredible. He's voted for Democrat stuff. It's so typical of Pennsylvania Republicans. So, that's why I say, our PAGOP, it's not MAGA or make Pennsylvania great.
Any stretch of the imagination.
Not by any stretch. So we'll see on this next budget. And I say, well, maybe it's a strategy that they want Shapiro to overspend, so the Republicans are going to give him everything you want. You want another $4 billion here? Here you go. Our budget's $52 billion. But I don't think they're that smart to say let's set him up and give him what he wants because it's going to fail. I think it's the Republicans actually like agreeing with the Democrats and giving them the spending.
Yeah, and quick note, right? Just last year, the Republicans voted for a Democrat Speaker of the House of Representatives. Like,
there you go. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's something that I'm going to do all day long. Never, right?
Well, I don't think. I think the long-term Republicans we've elected in the state, they don't even know that they're compromising. It's become such a way of life that, we got to satisfy the Democrats. I'll give you this, you give me that. What did we ever take back?
Nothing.
Nothing. Act 77, mail-in ballots. What have we ever taken back? And think about this. A couple of years ago, we had the House by 22.
Yeah, but for Republican majorities that were squandered.
Yeah, now we don't. So, it's like I have no faith in them. But this stuff, I put out my newsletter, Never Socialist, right?
Right. John has a newsletter, Never Socialist. It's a good one.
Yeah. You guys got included in your monthly email, your King's Report. You got to put a link in there, But I list all of the stuff, going on nationally, and then there's a section for what's going on in the state. Really, you learn a lot from it. But I tell you something that happened this week. I think it was that Josh Shapiro is going to be the narrator for an NCAA basketball game.
Oh, boy. National exposure for the 2028 Josh Shapiro presidential run.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what?
If you didn't know that, you just heard it here on the MAGA Kingdom Report.
Yeah, I think that's good because he could start his second career because he's going to lose this time next year. So I think he should be working on his next job, his next career as a announcer. But
words of wisdom.
I mean, that's what. Here's another thing I learned last week or early this week, right? Uh, Josh Shapiro has 26 people on his staff, media people promoting him on
Oh,
social media, all that. 26
that's
people.
like PA aid, probably. Like
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, PA aid. But Wolf had 12 people, and Corbett had, I think, 11. He's got
Not too
26.
many. Yeah, this guy's over the line. Yep.
Well, all little Josh is so plastic, it's incredible. This guy, and that's why even when you look at the spending, what's in his head? In his head, he needs to say, I'm doing things in PA. Look at all the things I did by spending an extra 4, 6, 8 billion dollars, right? He knows he's not going to be there at the end of the next term. He's putting in 1 year if he wins, right? He's going to put in 1 year, then he starts his campaign for president, and he needs to show we did this, we did this, we did. But the fact that we're going to be bankrupt, no reserve fund, they used the reserve fund up. The reserve fund will be gone the
Yep.
end of next year. It'll
Just,
be gone.
just to add, President Trump and his brilliance, Josh Shapiro sued the Doge. He didn't want Trump to be doing all this because Pennsylvania, quote, will be hurt. And you know what Trump did in a brilliant move? Trump assigned him to the Governors Association.
Yeah,
So now
yeah.
Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania, is on there with a lot of these
Republicans.
Republican governors. So Trump gave him a little, okay, Josh, you got a big mouth. Okay, we're going to put you right in here. Let's see what you have to say now. So,
Yeah. Well, see, that's what I figured too, is that he put Josh in a
yep.
position to fail because Josh is going to shoot his mouth off. And we'll see see, Shapiro will probably go along with those governors until the press hits or some union in PA hits him. Why did you do that? Why did you? Then he's going to flip. He's a flipper.
Mm-hmm.
He flipped on RGGI. He flipped on school choice. He's going to flip is exactly what he's going to. He's so plastic and so phony. It's incredible.
We're speaking with John Ventry today. He's out of uh, Westmoreland County, and he lives in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and he's going to run for your governor in this next one. So, John, what you know, we have Pennsylvania, we have Doge. Like, would you be the Doge of Pennsylvania? Like, what do you see that we could make a change in?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I just talked about the spending from 38 billion to 50, 51, 52 billion in 5 years. Come on. Yeah, I mean, you got to put a stop to this. So yeah, we have to do all of these cost cutting and stuff, but Trump or Musk, I read just the other day that Doge is saving us $1 billion a day. So that'd be 365 billion. I think it's way higher than
You
that.
know what?
Way higher.
But it's like 365 billion is nothing. Which, believe me, it's a lot. You know how many hours of work have to be done to collect 365 billion? But
I
at
know it.
36 trillion, headed to 40 trillion in debt, and the debt is going to be the debt service, the interest on the debt is going to be a trillion. Like, we need, everybody's crying now about Doge. We need to go way past Doge to
Oh
write.
yeah. Well, it's exactly what we need. It's the problem in America right now is we've ignored the debt. We just hit 37 trillion, 37 trillion, and it's a trillion a quarter going up. So we're going to be at 41 trillion this time next year. And the interest payments are more than the defense budget. So he's doing exactly what has to be done. If you do some sort of a flat tax, you don't need the IRS, right? So you can get rid of that one, you know?
John, good point. I wanted to share this with you. There's a possibility with tariffs, and I was not a tariff guy before.
Yeah.
With tariffs, it's possible to do away with the income tax, the IRS, if the taxes, the tariffs were put on products coming into the United States, and we would tariff them at the same rates they tariff us because it's so unfair. Our product can't go to other countries, especially India, because it's tariffed out of sight. But if India gave us a 10% tariff and we said, okay, India, it's 10% for you coming in, right? We could do away with the income tax with the IRS How about that? And I never thought of that until what? Donald Trump and his team came in and said, tear
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Well, he's also talking to China and Russia about reducing the military, the nuclear stuff. He says, let's cut the military in half. I mean, we'd still be at almost $500 billion a year for the military. The only problem is, I don't know if you could trust those two, you know?
Russia, maybe. China,
Yeah,
absolutely not. And by the
absolutely
way,
not.
China doesn't develop their own stuff. It's all stolen from us. You can't.
Oh,
So
yeah.
US
Yeah.
this F-35 fighter, and 3 years later, here's China with a plane that looks the same, right?
Yeah, and aircraft carriers and the scary thing is they're making the chips and the parts that are in our craft. How do we know there isn't a turnoff switch?
Listen, it's all by design, right? They
I
take
think it
over.
is.
We have no military industrial complex that will make ships and planes and all that, right? In China, full bore ahead. They've got power plants. They've got
I
natural
know it.
like
Well,
United
see, I
States.
fi- I find that very scary that they make the parts for a lot of our stuff. What if there's a turnoff switch? I mean, we're going to go to war over Taiwan, and our ships are heading there, and all of a sudden, boom, they turn off.
Yeah.
Halfway there. What are we going to do?
Now, here's how brilliant it is. You saw the Israelis when they put those explosives
Yeah,
in walkie-talkies, right? So you
yes.
don't think China can put it in a little chip? Like, come on, America and Americans, baby. You better stop listening to that lying, collusional, racketeering, conspiratorial media and think these guys want what the United States has, which is resources and money. So capital.
And and 12 of the last 16 years, we've had a Democrat president that you can't trust.
Right.
So did they cut this deal with China?
That's
Biden definitely would have. I don't know if Obama would have, but Biden absolutely would have done that. But even look at DEI. Because I watch that, and I'm the type of American I boycott products like I won't drink Coca-Cola. I won't buy Amazon. There are things I do because of there. So you still got Apple, Microsoft, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Costco that refuse to pull their
yeah.
DEI stuff. So let's see. I mean, I'm kind of stuck with Microsoft, but I don't go to Costco. I then never owned an Apple product, although my credit card got hit with Apple Pay, and they had to give me a new card a month ago. And I got a new card. The first week I reinstated it, I got hit by the same person again.
Really.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that's an inside job.
well, it has to do with, I think, the automatic payments that I put all my utilities,
Yeah.
Xfinity. Somebody at one of those companies is stealing that information, and I got the card, and 3 days later, the person hit me again for online charges, and I had just updated all of that, and I have a new card coming probably tomorrow or today, and I don't think I'm going to do the automatic payments. I'm going to have to write checks for everything.
You know what? That might be a sound way to go about it. John, I wanted to add this while we're talking
Yeah.
about theft, right? Social Security. There's like 343 million Americans on the Social Security
I
list
know.
that Elon Musk put out, but there's 395 million Social Security account numbers. Now, John, I will tell you, you know what? That extra 50 million are the quote illegal aliens that really aren't here and really aren't getting paid, but somehow there's 50 million more Social Security numbers than there are Americans. So, you know what? They're hitting your credit card, John, and they're also hitting your Social Security for these United States. So,
But you know what the thing I thought about, Frank, when I saw that was, are these the people that voted? Are these the people that gave the votes? If you got a social security number, I think you're able to vote.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. That
So,
remember, the president, the government always said Social Security numbers will never be
yeah,
used for identification. You lying sacks of shit.
everything. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. But so what are the Democrats doing? They're suing to stop Trump every step of the way when he's doing what's right. But what he's doing really, since they're all unionized and those are Democrats, these federal workers. So, the Democrats are trying to stop this because that's their people.
Their base, right?
That's their base. So, I don't know. I looked at that U.S. aid, and there was only 14 countries out of what's it, 230 countries in the world. Only 14 didn't get aid from us. That's it, just 14.
And
Unbelievable.
something wrong because we gave that to everybody.
Yeah, well, I think Trump learned a lot from where he was, the first time,
Yeah.
and because he did he know about USA? I never heard of the USA until now, you
It's,
know?
it's amazing. USA, and we watch this stuff, right? So
Yeah,
that thing operated underground surreptitiously. Like I'm just floored that, but that's where that's where the funding of the media. You always wonder, John. Nothing. You know this in politics. Nothing happens without money, right? The more
yeah,
money you got, the bigger your campaign, the bigger your footprint. So when the United States government is paying Politico and all these left wing organizations, you always wonder, well, how does the media always cover these things? How do they devote people and time? They were being paid to lie to you from the U.S. government, USAID, like, and that
yeah.
it's not A, John. It's the Agency for International Development, which means funding America's enemies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, our enemies, they're funding DEI over there. They're funding trans operations over there. This is like it's unbelievable what they were doing with this. It's just incredible. But then again, I look at our state. Will Pennsylvania Republicans go along with a dose Department of State, instead of
So
efficiency, instead of Doge dose, I don't see our people in favor of that, because our Republicans are so compromised and weak. It's incredible.
Well, I want to point that out, John. We have a couple minutes left to
Yeah.
wrap up this interview. What you're saying is that you'd be a different Republican than the run of the mill, the person that gets elected and then always lets you down and gives you garbage votes, and you just so John Ventry wouldn't flip flop. If John went in, he'd be a Pennsylvania first, America first, and somebody that would cast votes for liberty, for the Second Amendment, for us. So, John, anything that you like to add?
Well, yeah, I'm going to run. I'm waiting. I'm deciding, do I announce after Labor Day? Do I announce in August? Last time I announced in June. That was a little kind of early, so I am running. I want people to go to my website, vote, it's number 4, vote4ventry.com. And I have a draft of my plan there. I'd like people to go and look at it. I got to finalize that. I got to clean it up, et cetera. But here's the thing I know in this state is that the voters see the PA GOP, they control stuff and they work against candidates, but
Like they do.
70% of the Republicans in the state, I think even a lot of Democrats are patriots. They really are. And a lot of Democrats voted for Trump. So look at Mastriano. The party worked against him, right? And but he got overwhelming. He won the primary. So the way I look at it, because I don't have his name recognition, is as long as there isn't a true patriot out there, then I'm that person. And when you look at political insiders, there's a couple of people saying they might run, but the way I look at it, if you're on the inside, you've been on the inside, whether it's a Congress person, working federally or it's a state office, you've been there. You haven't done anything, and odds are you voted with the Dems a number of times.
Yeah.
You
You're
need
right.
a political outsider. That's what Trump is. That's what I am. And that's
Business,
what a
political.
business person. That's what I tell you. I have a list, and it's in my website too. When the newsletter I send, how Trump and I are similar, and people who are close to me say, "John, it is incredible how similar you are to Trump. How the local Republicans have gone after you, just like the party. You stand up to the progressive movement and all that mental illness when everybody else had their head, they turned the other cheek, right? They had their head in the sand. I came out back in 20. Once I saw what they were doing to Trump in the end of 15 and then 16, I immediately came out, started my newsletter, and was just blasting progressive mental illness and standing up for America. And most people didn't do that.
Well, John, one thing, and you said your background, you came from New York. Was it New York City?
Yeah, I grew up in New York City, just like Trump.
So you know what? I will tell you from being in New York City, you know people that are trying to scam you. You know the too good to be trues, right? You know who's going to be sticking it in your back. So you know that's a good point to make, John, because if and when you went to Harrisburg, you have the experience of living in New York City. So you know the Harrisburg Shuffle and the Harrisburg Con. You'll be able to see that and say, "Yeah, guys, no, that's not going to work." So
Yeah, yeah. Well, Shapiro didn't grow up in PA. Like, so a lot of people may think Shapiro is a Pennsylvania. He's not a Pennsylvania person. He
he's
grew
a
up in
bagger.
Well, yeah, but he grew up in Kansas. So let's see. I grew up in New York City, where you got to be tough and hard nosed, right? He grew up in Kansas, so I'm going to tell him to click his heels 3 times and go back to Kansas,
That's it. Good luck with
just like
Total.
the Wizard of Oz.
That'll be great.
Yeah. So I would say, you'll hear more from me. I'm going to announce. I've got 90 talking points on Shapiro. 90. I've got to go through them, and I've got to, because I keep adding to it as stuff comes up. I
Oh,
got
he
to
gives
put
you
it.
more material every day.
Oh, every day, every week he does. So I got to put that together, and then I got to clean up, because I list like 40 things I'm going to do, and everybody in politics says, "No, John, just list 3 or 4 things," because they'll pick out the one thing that's maybe radical or not as popular that you said, and then they're going to. That's what they'll talk about. They're not going to talk about the big things that you want to do. They'll talk about that 1 or 2 things. So I got to
They
clean.
hear you no matter what. So if you like what Trump is doing, swarm and storm and just say, guys, there's so many things wrong that okay, here's what I got. I got 90, and you know what? We're gonna get them all done. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I was so looking forward to debating Mastriano, but he wouldn't debate us. And I said I want to debate Shapiro. Doug Mastriano was not a good debater, and he's kind of nervous with public speaking. And I wanted to debate him and Lou Barletta, and
yeah,
then move on to debating Shapiro. And like I said, my talking is I'm going to tear Shapiro apart. I'm going to absolutely tear him apart.
yeah. All right, John. Well, let's make sure that our audience knows how to contact you, your newsletter. So give your information one more time.
Yeah, just go to my website. It's the number 4, vote for Ventry, VENTRE, voteforventry.com. And you could reach out to me from there and, comment on there and read my plan. And I think you'll be behind me.
So it's like one stop shopping. Vote the number 4, Ventry.com, and you could see John's platform. You can talk to him. He can email you back, whatever goes on. So,
Yeah, I even posted every letter to the editor that it's about 30 of them there. Where I stand up for patriots, I criticize it. Every one of those letters to the editor, the link is there.
that's all good stuff for the resume for the kind of guy that I would vote for. So,
Yeah.
John, thank you for being on the MAGA Kingdom Report. And I'm sure as things progress, your campaign progresses, we will see you again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John. God bless John Ventry. God bless America. And God bless the President of these United States, Donald J. Trump, and his team. Peace out.